You mentioned Russia. We don't hear anything about the Ukraine war anymore. How does Russia fit into this?
Well, I think one of the takeaways, in fact, I just had an article in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. You might even put it as a link to this podcast.
Definitely, we'll put it in
Was
the
that
description.
was that we should we should be very proud of what our men and women in uniform have done against Iran and in the Gulf, but we should recognize that the real future of war for which we need to prepare is in Ukraine. And I'm just back from there 2 weeks ago. It was my 10th trip since the full-on invasion. And the mass of unmanned systems there is incomparably greater. Ukraine alone is using nearly 10,000 unmanned systems of all types per day. So this is not just in the air of different types. Some are tactical, surveillance, suicide drones, one way, but then the ones going deep every night into Russia along with missiles. The maritime drones that have sunk over 35% of the Russian Black Sea fleet and forced the remainder of it to tie up in a port as far from Ukraine as they can get. Ground unmanned systems. You can't drive a vehicle in the death zone anymore. That's the area 35 kilometers on either side of where you have a front line of troops, which really now is just deeply underground positions on either side, except in urban areas where you're obviously inside buildings. Because if you come out in that 35 kilometers, you're almost immediately identified by surveillance reconnaissance drones, and then the race is on. You got to get to cover very quickly. I'm not talking concealment. I'm talking deeply underground, because the suicide drones are going to start attacking, then the bomber drones, and then maybe even glide bombs. So this is the most lethal front line in history. Traditional combined arms don't work anymore. Tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, combat engineers, air defense, electronic warfare, all of that normally makes up maneuver arms and maneuver warfare is not possible, at least unless it's in very, very bad weather where the surveillance drones can't see it. And they have elaborate cages over tank. They try everything, but sooner or later you can knock it out in terms of mobility. So it's what's called a mobility kill. You hit a road wheel and no longer moves, and then you just hammer it until it finally ignites and blows up. So it's almost impossible. And the Ukrainians on the front lines are now stopping the Russians very nearly cold. There are these small infiltration. When I was there this last time, for the first time, went up to headquarters of frontline units. And again, frontline commanders cannot visit their troops' positions. It's too dangerous. They get videos back and forth and this kind of thing.
Right.
When the supplies go forward, it's in remotely driven vehicles that then at night bring back casualties on them, remotely driven. They might have a drone on top of them or something like that to help with navigation. They have remotely controlled machine guns, grenade launchers, mine layers, obviously all kinds of surveillance. It's really, that is the current state of the future of war. And then you also have, of course, each night into Ukraine and each night into Russia, smaller numbers, but large numbers of drones and missiles. And Ukraine is spectacular against drones. They actually have acoustic as well as radar sensors and other intelligence feeds that enable them to very accurately identify the incoming drones and then take them down with interceptor drones. I went out on a mission with one of these units back in early February on a 10 degrees below zero night. It was really cold, but the skill of the pilots was amazing. And they're actually down in 4 of the Gulf states now helping them out with this, although it's an ecosystem. You don't just bring in the hardware and the pilots. You have to erect all the rest of the stuff that provides the common operational picture that is the basis for all of this. But so that's the state of the art. By the way, there's no close air support. Aircraft can't get anywhere near the front lines. It's too lethal in terms of air defense. But the future is what's really alarming, and that is the arrival of autonomous warfare. In fact, we'll give you another link for that as well. There's an article in Foreign Affairs magazine a few weeks back that I co-authored with a great U.S. entrepreneur, software engineer who went into Ukraine after the full-on invasion, has been there all 4 years, helping them build what I think is the state-of-the-art battle management system and common operational picture with a whole bunch of different filters you can put on it.
Hmm.
And this arrival of autonomous systems will mean that the mass that you currently see will be exponentially increased because there's no limit in terms of remote pilots anymore. Now it's machines, it is algorithms that will be driving, that will be piloting these systems
Wow.
of all types. And then the next iteration will be systems of autonomous systems where you'll have even the sensors, and you'll actually have decisions
Right.
made by algorithms at the speed of machine,
Hmm.
directing unmanned aerial, ground, maritime, whatever other systems you have,
Right.
cyber, and
All.
electronic warfare. All of this, that is coming soon to a theater near us. And that is a dramatically greater challenge, obviously, because you can take out onesies and twosies. You can take out individual drones with individual drone interceptors or other means. Taking out swarms is a whole different physical challenge.
Hmm. Especially autonomous ones. What are some of the leading companies that are involved in this?
Well, the Ukrainian companies are exceptional. They are producing, for example, this year alone, 7 million. I visited the three major drone manufacturers. One of them alone will make 3 million drones this year. And there's a variety of others. The challenge is that they have a window of opportunity that they can exploit to export, have joint ventures, have each actual manufacturing facilities elsewhere, all of this.
Hmm.
And they're working feverishly to develop the policies, legislation, procedures, and regulations for this.
Hmm.
And it's not sorted out just yet. And so that is a work in progress. I have a piece coming out on that as well,
Okay.
that recognizes how important it is to rapidly develop this. In fact, when I was there the last time, I met with the head of the presidential office, Lieutenant General Budanov, who's very, very impressive. He's working this. Their equivalent of the majority leader of the parliament, the Rada, twice actually, because we went back with more questions the next night. The drone manufacturers, the drone units, all of this. And this is a particular challenge, understandably, because President Zelensky doesn't want them to export everything to Western countries and get
Yeah.
triple the price.
Hmm.
They need to keep a certain number of those in the country. And when you're using 10,000 a day, and that number is going to go up because that was at a 3.5 million production level, which was last year. So they're literally
Hmm.
doubling production. It's
Wow.
extraordinary to see, but it's because they're fighting for their very survival. And
Yeah.
they're in the equivalent of the Super Bowl every day, whereas we tend to scrimmage a few times a year, or say the war with Iran is against a much, much less capable enemy
Mhm.
than is the case with the Russian Federation forces.